Hi, I'm Tom Rawson. I'm back here with Richie Lewis. Richie, what are we talking about today?
Couple of things. What's listings look like under current market conditions? And I think it'll be nice to touch on the forum I went to a couple of weeks ago, hosted by the REAA, Real Estate Authority.
There's complaints.
Complaints. Notably, there's been a 44% increase in complaints. So what's that about?
Why are people whinging? Are we getting worse at what we do? Is it easier to complain? What was the gist of the conversation there?
Well, it is easy to complain, isn't it? When we sign a listing or take an offer, we've got a number of obligations, and one of those obligations is to make it very clear to our clients what their course of action is if they're not happy.
Yep.
Starting with the agency involved, of course, and then from there, if they're not satisfied, onto the REA.
Yep.
44% is a massive increase, though, isn't it?
It's huge. Were we awesome? Was that after a massive decline, or is it just a massive incline?
No, that's a massive incline. So we're in a cooler market, aren't we? We have been for some time.
Yep.
So the rationale behind these complaints is when your property's on the market for a long time, when there are unmet expectations from a seller's point of view, it can lead to a lot of disappointment, some increased scrutiny around what happened or what didn't happen.
Yep.
And so because it's easy to express that concern with the agency or with the REA, people are taking that step. You've also got AI now, haven't you? And so, it's not hard to be able to bang a couple of prompts inside your chat GPT, and it'll give you a list of stuff that you could try and take issue with. Not to say there's an issue there.
Yeah.
But you can bang out a long-winded email and sort of tie agents and agencies up for quite some time going through each of those potential issues to address them.
We've seen buyer non-performance is a big one. So if a buyer doesn't perform for whatever reason, the deposit wasn't paid on time, or they turned up early or late or whatever to a pre-settlement inspection, or they knocked on the door between unconditional and the pre-settlement, or not settling on time for whatever reason, we get blamed, obviously, because everything's our fault, as you'd imagine. That can be frustrating, having to deal with them.
Yeah.
Obviously, we work the property as best we can. We meet all the buyers that we can. A buyer buys, the vendor accepts the purchaser's offer, and then it's up to the purchaser to behave in the best interests of everyone, including themselves, as per the rules that are set out in the terms and conditions of the contract. How does that become your problem or our problem or their problem? We're seeing those complaints.
Well, I think one of the great things about New Zealand real estate is our sale and purchase agreement is really robust. It's been developed over years. So it's tight. What it means is if there are issues that arise with either party, whether it's the seller or the purchaser, they've got really good recourse through the contract, right? But that's going to cost probably a bit of money with lawyers. Real estate agents or agencies can be a bit of an easier target. I'll take my issues up there. It's not going to really cost me anything, and I'll see what sort of.
So you bring up a good point.
Oh, it's a very good point, I think.
Where they don't want to engage their lawyer, so they'll have a crack at the real estate agent in the hope that we can get it sorted for them. Unfortunately, with the listing agreement that we have with the vendor, we're somewhat powerless beyond marketing the property, accepting the deposit, and then turning up on settlement day or pre-settlement inspection prior, facilitating that, and settlement day with the keys. The contract between the vendor and the purchaser, which you're talking about, which is really robust and allows for a mechanism for disputes to happen and potentially holding back funds on settlement date until these disputes are rectified. That's beyond our pay grade.
Sure.
That is the lawyers that can facilitate that. So they do try and avoid that cost, only really to get frustrated, I suppose, because we're powerless in that regard.
That's right.
And so it ends up with the lawyers anyway. So by that stage, they're a bit more frustrated that the other side hasn't responded or whatever. And then most agents are good humans, and they'll try to help and mediate between. They're the conduit between the vendor and the buyer.
100%.
Normally they haven't met.
Yeah, and that's something that, one thing that I think most real estate agents carry is a sense of, duty towards their clients, and they feel bad if something doesn't happen, even if it's outside of their control.
Yeah.
You still feel a sense of obligation towards trying to help find a solution. The challenges, though, the remedies aren't actually there; they're inside the contract through the legal processes, and so coming back to where I started, a lot of buyers or sellers will try and take issue first with the agency, and we do our best where we can and where it's within our power to help make things happen. But again, it's not something we get paid for. It's not something we're expected to do. There's no contractual obligation. But as I say, most agents want to see their clients happy.
We can overstep in that department in terms of what we can and can't do. But we do have the relationship with both parties, and so we give it a fair crack. But yeah, still, so 44% up is crazy. And it just, maybe there's a lack of care out there in the wider industry. That's not 44% just us. That's 44% across the country. So maybe the agents have dropped the ball a little bit. And I don't know what it's like. I've been making offers recently on property. Yeah. And each agent is different. How they communicate, how often they communicate, how they communicate, what they're communicating. And communication through all of that is the critical thing. If you make an offer on a property, you want to be told when it's going to be presented and when you can expect some feedback, or if you're not going to get any feedback, or what the owner thought of it, or whatever. You're just communicating is the key. And probably, I don't know, was there talk around how many of the complaints come down to poor communication?
I think in almost all complaints, there's an element of non-communication involved where, if there's a void, it's going to get filled. And from the client's point of view, it's usually a default to the negative side versus the positive side. And what people don't realise is while there may not have been much communication, that's not to say there hasn't been a lot of work. Yeah. Where I think the agents sometimes let themselves down is where they're doing all that work, but they are just assuming from the vendor's end that they are assuming that's what's happening, when in actual fact they're assuming the exact opposite. I hope that all made sense.
Definitely. So if you do the work, it's important that people know that you do the work. If we take on a listing and our owner lives in another island, and then all of a sudden they're not happy because they've been kept up to date, but they don't know what you've done. They just see start, finish, and nothing in between. Yeah. But there's a lot of ingredients to baking the cake. And so the communication of what you're doing is really important. Like if I was selling a house, and I did sell at the end of last year, I loved frequent updates from the agents, ideas around changing things to make things happen in a faster manner, documented stuff. They sent me a live link so that I could look at it whenever I wanted to. Yeah. Because I knew there was inquiry happening every day, new views every day. And so that transparency is critical. If you're not getting that and you're on the market, that would be very frustrating. Yes. I know through a recent transaction of a family member, there was it wasn't that fluid. And so you're like, what are they not telling me? Yeah. Yeah. Versus I know everything. The guys are doing a great job. Yeah. The market's tough. You start blaming the market and stop blaming the agent. Yeah.
Well, that's exactly the point. We're in a market where it is taking, on average, longer to sell a property. And what the anxiety for the agent becomes when, as you know, all the energy and all the action and excitement happens in the early stages of the campaign. Yep. You are the fresh property to the market. You are the shiny, bright new toy that buyers want to play with. But that's got an expiry date on it. Usually it's, 3 to 4 weeks. If there hasn't been a result within that time frame, there is a notable drop away of inquiry, and now you're buried on page 10 of Trade Me. You're not getting the engagement you once had. So now the agent's thinking, gosh, I actually don't really have much to tell the client right now. And actually that's exactly what you should tell the client. Hey, Bob, I need to let you know there's nothing to let you know. Hey, Bob. And that triggers the conversation. At least Bob knows you're thinking about Bob.
Bob, I've got a few other properties online and we're getting inquiries on those. Unfortunately, we haven't had one on yours. I did open homes on the weekend across 5 properties, and yours is the only one that didn't have traffic through. Hey, Bob, realistically, if we're to get your property sold in the next little while, we need to make adjustments because we've just missed our being the new shiny thing on the block, we now need to be competitive in the market. Hey, Bob, how would you feel about, and then go down that path of getting Bob sold, getting Bob a result, so that Bob knows that you're still trying.
Yeah.
Because it can feel like you've given up. And I've seen agents give up.
Oh yeah, energies,
Gone.
so
Owners have given up. I've seen buyers give up recently, and so the time on market and time in market is grueling, and it can diminish your enthusiasm to purchase and transact. And so keeping on it is important. You just got to remember why you came to the market in the first place if you're selling, and why you picked that agent in the first place, and why you took on that listing if you're the agent as well. You took it on to get them a result. You knew what they were after. You appraised the value. And if you're spot on, it shouldn't be too hard. But if you've maybe been a bit too ambitious with the property pricing, and that can be, I'd imagine, is a big area of complaints, is, if it's $1 million property, you've said you might get them 1.1 to 1.2. They've paid $5,000 in marketing, and then you got them 800, and they're like, well, sheesh, we didn't sign up for that. If that's the best that's around, what's the story? And so just communicating that. I mean, you can get it wrong, but that's way wrong. You've probably bought the listing, and that's where your trust goes out the window. And so the longer you're on the market, the more offers you give them at that level, the less they'll trust you.
Yeah.
And you probably, up a creek without a paddle in that regard to win them over unless a miracle happens. So, I think being real, just straightforward, honest and transparent, being like, the advisor.
Well, that's what we are in the end, aren't we?
Yeah.
We've got no control actually over what the market decides to do or how the market reacts. What we control is how we approach the market to get the best possible result. So there can be surprises all around. But like you say, the most important thing is right from the get-go, being really direct and straight, and have a good understanding. For example, just even that issue of communication.
Yep.
Crack. Beautiful, Mr. Musashi. So that issue of communication, set out the desired approach.
Yep.
Do you want to text every day? Do you want to call every day, once a week? Some people actually, I've had a client say, I don't want you to talk to me until you've got an offer. It's like, oh, all right, fair enough. Why is that though? You know what I mean? Just so I understand what that's about.
Yep.
And I think that's important. I actually remember while you were talking, it reminded me, we listed a property in Rosehill for a cop, and he lived miles away, or he was working miles away, and I was out there mowing his lawns in advance of the viewing. You ring me up, hey mate, what are you doing? Oh, I'm just doing these lawns. Oh, are you? Look, does the client know? I'm like, no. Why not? And I'm not even thinking that's something I need to tell, but let him know. And I'm like, ever since then, it made me think about a lot of stuff we do that 100% a client would like to know. That for us, we just, taking it for granted.
You're thinking you're doing the right thing and mowing the lawn, which you were, to create the first impression and going above and beyond, and he fully didn't expect it. He might have been boosting to the property later that day to mow the lawn himself. And go, oh, fuck, get here today and someone else has mowed the lawn. Who would have mowed the lawn? No one's told me they mowed the lawn. So it's crazy, little stuff like that, eh?
Little stuff like that.
Getting the wrong roof wash one time was a good one.
Well, that wasn't me.
No, that was a bad one. But ended up
At least I was getting the wrong roof painted.
Yeah, that would be bad. So your complaints are up. I think we need to upskill a little bit in our communication, jump on the side of our seller and just see why they're there and why they might be feeling aggrieved as well. And if you treated everyone like you do treat your mum, and you're straight up and doing the best you can, as long as you're keeping them informed and communication-wise is spot on, I think, these complaints could decline by 44%.
Well, and a lot are actually for that reason, right? But coming back to where we started, it's a good thing. Our industry is easy to complain to, in the sense that if you have got some sense of grievance, you do have avenues you can take. So that's good for the industry. It gives confidence, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely, and they follow them up. We're both in the management team here at AT Realty, and we get to deal with these complaints. And so I used to treat every single one of them is a personal attack on me, which is the wrong thing to do because I was never involved in the initial problem. But I now treat them as training opportunities. Like, oh, how did we stuff that up, or how could we be better in that, and how could we maybe have kept that client more informed around this is the expectation around things. And so now it's a good opportunity to be involved in these complaints as and when they come across the board. And given our size and amount of transactions we do get more than some of my friends who have branches across the country. And they might do 10 or 15 deals a month, and we do 10 times that. And so we should expect a few more complaints than so we get good at answering them. And often there's cultural things as well that pop up. There's all sorts of things that pop up with these complaints. One thing I suppose to consider is, what are we hoping to achieve out of the complaint? And often people just want to vent, even if our agents have done nothing wrong. And so we look at each complaint as if we've done something wrong. It's a starting point rather than being defensive, like, oh, what have we done wrong here? And 9 times out of 10, nothing. We haven't done anything wrong. It's just how they're feeling around how the process has happened. Yeah. And so, like, it's, I haven't actually done anything wrong. It's just we could have made them feel better about something.
And I mean, no agent goes out there setting out to find themselves on the wrong end of a complaint. And actually, it's probably good for people to know it's a massive energy drainer and burden for an agent to carry while they're living under the cloud of an unresolved complaint. It doesn't help them or their business. So, sometimes a real honest conversation, firstly with the agent, resolves this stuff 9 times out of 10. But the good thing is that there's always a avenue or pathway you can take if you don't get satisfaction at that level. So that's enough for the complaints.
Yeah, it's enough on complaints. So now, when can I see some new property?
So we moved into this year, mate, and we're nearly halfway through it, carrying a lot of stock over from last year.
Yep.
We've got record levels of properties available for sale or saturation of listings, but one...
Is that us or everyone?
Everyone.
Yeah.
We've got a lot too, by the way.
449?
Yep. More or less.
18% on the market over 90 days.
Oh, that's a good breakdown.
Yeah.
18% on the market over 90 days, that's right. Yeah, so we 4 months ago, we were sitting around 20. We pulled that right back to 10, and we're back out there again.
Yep.
So that just goes to what we were talking about before, right? That is taking longer to sell.
Yep.
To sell property. But there's less new listings coming online. What's that about?
You probably heard this at like barbecues and wherever, like, oh, I've seen everything that's online. Yeah, and I've seen everything that's online. Nothing there is suitable. It's like we've got the most amount of stock online than we've had in the last 10 years. I think the portals are up 11%. However, they're down on new listings. So what's online staying around and new stuff's coming to the market and getting snapped up. There was an article recently in One Roof. It's like, come online, gone in 3 days. Come online, same street, gone in a week. And so that stuff's hot on, off. And then on the same street or off that street might be one that's been on the market for 6 months. And so it's weird, eh? Like the stuff that comes on now has got the benefit of more recent data. So if I was coming onto the market 9 months ago, I've got 9 months ago data. Whereas I'm coming on now, I've got the last 9 months of data to make my price opinion on. So I think agents are probably too scared to reappraise property that's on the market and get it moving. But once property is moving, like as those people sell, then they need to buy.
Yeah.
If someone's bought, they need to sell. And so the amount of property on the market generally dictates volume. However, with stagnant property on the market, it's really, we've got this old market, 90 days plus, which 18% of our stock sits in. And we've got this new market, 90 days or less, which is 72% of our stock. So 18% of it's hanging around a little bit longer. And the stuff that comes on, like what's our clearance rate under the hammers, 60-odd%?
Yep. Yeah, we've got a fantastic clearance rate. Yeah, we've been tracking, even above 60% in recent times. Our last auction event, we cleared 70%. Average days on market for an auction item, 29.
Yeah.
Average days on market for any other method of sale, over 50.
Okay, so we bring on like 100+ listings a month. So half of them go to auction and 70% of them sell within 30 days. So that's 30 out of the 100 that we bring on there. The other ones that don't sell at auction are typically gone within a month after auction. So that's 50 gone within 2 months.
Yeah.
Average days on market for the ones that aren't at auctions 50. So they're kind of on the market for less than 2 months.
Yeah.
So all our new stuff comes on and goes, and probably 10% of it fades into the 90-day category.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, the barbecue chat is true. I've seen everything because I've seen it came online to auction. Foolishly, I thought I could wait until after auction to have a crack at it. It sold at auction. Oh man, I was so surprised. And then now I'm looking again, and so I'm demotivated. And I've seen that. That one passed in at auction. I didn't like it. Seen that one. Someone's already got that one under contract, subject to a house to sell. Like my mum's just seen her house and she likes it, but subject to sale already on it. So she'd be a backup offer.
Yeah.
And so this conditional market's a minefield. You see a property you like, under contract, someone else. And the under contract period used to be 5 days, maybe 10. It's not uncommon now to be under contract for over a month or 2, and sometimes with no backup or escape clause.
Yeah.
So it's a weird little market out there for the stuff that's been sitting around for a while. If that falls over after 2 months, it's a dead duck typically.
100%.
Need a new strategy. So new stuff. One of our guys, Raj, was at open homes on the weekend. He's 3 open homes, 17 groups met, and some of the conversations were like 5 groups. Similar conversation. Hey, we've sold and we haven't found anything to buy. How soon could these guys settle? Like, we need to go really quickly. We've sold.
Yeah.
The rental market's pretty hard to get a rental.
Yep.
The process of applying for a rental and getting accepted and then all the rest of it's quite complicated.
Yep.
So these people are looking to just buy anything.
Yep.
So is now a good time to sell? I reckon it is.
Well, it gives the vendor leverage, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, they've got buyers who need to align circumstances, so that's going to cost you. It's like the developer, he wants to buy the house, but he needs a 6-month settlement, so he's prepared to pay for what that means to their client. Same sort of thing, so it's a fantastic time to be on the market.
There's 2 houses sold on a street near me, similar, both on a gradient, both similar sized land, similar sellers, and one of them sold. And it had a reasonably quick settlement. And I was chatting to the other guy at kids soccer on the weekend, and he said he'd sold to a developer, and he knows how they work. He's an ex-real estate agent with Barfoot's, knows how they work, and gave them a little bit longer, and effectively got a little bit more because they've paid for the 12-month settlement. And so having flexibility, like there was another house on my actual street that sold recently, and I was blown away by the price. Did a bit of digging. They had sold recently and needed to get out, and they needed to buy now.
Right.
And they paid a premium to get into a vacant property. And like by the time I'd heard what it sold for, and when I saw the moving truck on the street, it was only a couple of weeks, which typically you're kind of 45 to 90 days between contract and then transaction. So yeah, it's quite, having flexibility. If you've got a vacant property, you might find it's more interesting at the moment for people because they can move straight in. If you need 1 year to settle, then you can still attract a developer.
Yep.
When's the new stock coming on? Like if I want to come on and sell now in June, I expect there to be a bit of new stuff June, July, August.
Yeah, you can, but you wouldn't. The thing that I always advise people against is analysis paralysis. You got to go when the timing is right for you, and if the timing is now, don't waste time.
Yep.
Get on there, and remember, if you think the market is going to be better to come into, say, in a month, and you've got reasons why, everyone else is probably thinking exactly the same thing. You're all going to come into the market at the same time. Guess what? That takes the power out of the competition that otherwise would have been there if you came in isolation versus in competition with everybody else.
Yeah.
So don't let what you don't know dictate your decisions.
Yeah, I mean, what if you could get what you're after now rather than waiting?
Exactly.
Because the outcome, like, I just got a message from my brother. It sounds like every family member of mine's doing transactions. I do have a big family. But my brother just sent me a message saying that they've just gone unconditional on a property, and those people have bought his property. Yeah. So he bought theirs, they bought his. no open homes, no nothing.
There you go.
And I was talking to my dad, who's up from the South Auckland at the moment, and he said, I reckon, Dan could have got a little bit more for the property. I said, Dan wanted to move.
Yeah.
And they were able to achieve the outcome of moving with what they've accepted and what they've offered.
Yeah.
And so often the objective needs to be reconsidered. Like if it all works and you get to box on the objective, you move house, whatever it is. Like we've got so many people that want to move out of Auckland and retire. The idea is to move out of Auckland and retire, but you're holding on to this number which you could have got in 3 years ago when everything was silly and you couldn't have moved out of Auckland and retired. Well, just forget about it. Go back to the objective. What are you doing? What did you come to the market for? We're mortgage free. We've got the place up north. We can work remotely. We've had enough. We've had a guts full even. And they're hanging on to something. It's like, well, let go. And so just remember the objective. But I think you're right.
Yeah. One little caveat in there.
Yes.
If you were thinking July is when you wanted to sell, well, it is worth having a little pause and getting yourself organised because that's our next mega auction event at the end of July. So that means you'd be getting yourself organised next month.
30th of July?
Yeah, 30 July.
Yeah.
One thing that I can say, hand on heart, is since our last mega auction event and then just having a look at the data around exposure and traffic and engagement, since then, there's a notable increase in the level of engagement we get around our mega auction events now. Our next one will be our 10th one.
Yep.
We know how to do these things now. And we actually do have folks who have been checking in with some of the teams saying, hey, when is that next one? We want to get...
I know, so the guys have got them ready.
We want to get locked in for that. So that's just something, to put out there. If July is
great month, July
for you. Yeah? What else happens in July?
I turned 40. Yeah, it's a good month.
There you go.
40 years young. July has been historically one of our busier months, like of 12 months in a year. And, you think, February is an awesome month. It's an awesome month for listing. There's a lot that comes on in February. And so you've got that competition coming on. And then they typically, transaction-wise, March is a great month because all the property that's come on in February is sold in March. And then we end up having a massive moving month in April around the long weekends and school holidays. And so that's kind of the first part of the year, which we've just come through, and now we're in May. So we're in the second cycle now where people are like, I've seen so-and-so's move. They've moved. We'll go to the market soon too. And there's a big thing around, obviously, it's wet in New Zealand. And so chatting to someone on the weekend, our driveway's a bit slippery in winter. Who cares, man? They're ready to go. They want to go. And in the area that they're in, there'll be very little, if anything, to compete with. And so they'll have all the eyeballs. And I know there's people looking in the area. And so it's like, we'll wait until our driveway is dry. Well, do you remember when Gabrielle was? Cyclone Gabrielle?
Yes, I do.
January or February?
It was very early because I was at a concert when that broke.
Yeah. Who was that, Smashing Pumpkins?
No, it wasn't.
U2?
No.
Led Zeppelin? Ed Sheeran. That was summer. Cyclone Gabrielle, biggest weather event we've had in the last little while, summer. Imagine if you had waited till then. I'm going to take photos mid-Jan, I think it was end of Jan, go online, and then boom, flooding. You can't predict these things, and you can't plan for weather and all the rest of it. You just got to go with what we've had. I've got a new dog. Yes. I've been walking him every morning at 6 o'clock. Twice this year at 6 o'clock in the morning, it's been raining. It's insane how good the weather's been. So don't just think, I can't sell now. If you can, Warren Buffett would probably say never try and pick a market or anything like that. But, just go when you're ready is a good try. But also, if you see nothing else is on, go. If I was to sell, all right, so I'm listening to this and you guys seem to know what you're talking about. I'll jump online now, and hey, I might even jump online in July with you guys. What if there's nothing for me to buy? How would you combat that from a seller's perspective? If you've got to say a flexible buyer who doesn't need to be in by a certain date. So you might be selling to a first home buyer or a downsizer or someone that's buying a second home or use a development property or something like that. how could you combat, I'll sell, but I haven't bought yet.
Yep.
And I don't want to be homeless. That's not my intention.
No, we don't like seeing our clients homeless either. You've got a few options there, right? There is the idea where you get engaged with the agent off the bat and they are as much as a buyer agent for you as well as a seller agent.
Yep.
Get your property under agency, which gives that agent authority to start talking about your property to potential buyers. At the same time, they're reaching out to all their networks and not just the on-market stuff, but the off-market stuff as well. They could well find that property that you're looking for so they can align those dates. The alternative is to give yourself a longer settlement. And as you know, there are buyers who are prepared to pay more for a longer settlement, but you want to be able to accommodate everybody as much as you can. The more you've got engaged around your property, the better the competition. Yeah. But if you got the right price, if you really got a really killer price, it may be worth, you could find, look, do you have options with family or whatever? Can you put some stuff in storage? I've seen that happen a lot. And a bit of short-term pain for the long-term gain.
Yeah, we did that one on REAA Road back in the day, and they said they needed 3 months to settle. And the buyer came along with an offer which was like, holy moly. And then the owner said, well, I'd take that, but where are we going to move to? It was like a 2-week settlement. I said, remember that one?
That's good.
And I said to the buyer when he made the offer, there's no way that they'll accept this 2-week settlement, because they got nowhere, they haven't bought yet. And they said, that's okay, we're not selling this one. They can move here for as long as they want, as long as they need to. We just need to be in that house in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And the purchaser was having surgery, and so they were going in for surgery. They wanted to then recover at that property and reside there. Gotcha. And so when I presented the offer, it was like, oh, that's an amazing offer. We can't take it because we've got nowhere to move to. I said, oh, what if you can move to their house? Where do they live? So this was Manukau Heights, and they lived in Burswood.
Yep.
And, okay. Oh, can we just drive past their house and have a little look, see what it looks like? I said, yeah, it's like a 4-bedroom, single-level brick and tile. They know you've got a dog. They said that you can have that dog there as well until you find a property. Yeah. So anything's possible. You just said before, engage an agent and they can start talking to their network. Exactly what happened with my brother. Yeah. So I got an appraisal, and then they said, oh, we know someone that would probably be keen on this. He said, what do I do? I said, give them a chance to bring the buyer through. Yeah. If the buyer's keen on yours, go have a look at theirs. Yep. And they went and looked at each other's houses, and happy days, they liked each other's houses. Yep. So they were buying and selling to each other, subject to them buying and selling to each other. Yep. And that's just going unconditional now. Nice. So that happens. The other thing that you could do, and we've done this as well, so developers want a little bit of time. So if you're selling with a 6 or 12-month settlement, developers might come after your property. Yep. Is put in there that you can bring the settlement date forward when you find something. And so if you've got a flexible purchaser, so I go, hey, Richie, I'll sell you my house, but I need to settle in 9 months' time. Yep. Or if I find something sooner, I'm going to let you know, and we're going to settle sooner. And it's going to be at my demand, effectively. Yep. You might be renting, or you might have flexibility, or it's just another rental property for you. Yep. And so then I could say, look, I'm a cash buyer. I've got 9 months to go around and find something. Yep. Should I find something in 9 months? Yes, unless I'm fussy. Yeah. And then I can bring the settlement date forward. And I don't have to ask you, because we've said at the start, look, I'll give you 20 days notice, 30 days notice, whatever it is, to bring the settlement date forward. Yeah. And then I can go out there, be a cash buyer, buy that property, write down a settlement date that I'm happy with, give you notice that I need to settle sooner. You've got the ability to, away we go. Yep. And that happens a lot. More than you'd think. With the tenancy laws recently changing, tenants can now give a shorter notice period too. If you're selling to someone who's currently renting, who's looking to buy your property, they can give a shorter notice period. So you can go around hunting to find something. And then once you've found something, give them notice that you need to settle sooner. So that's quite a good way to do it. One of the things to not have in there is by mutual agreement. Mutual agreement is mutual agreement, exactly that. Versus if you're the seller, it's unmutual. It's a demand. So at the request of the vendor or similar wording to that, and check that out with their lawyer. So basically you can go sell for a good price in an isolated market like we're in now, then go and buy, and then just deliver notice that we need to settle sooner. And it needs to be reasonable and fair, and no one can settle overnight typically. So make sure we've got adequate timings in there, but that's a good one. Yeah. I was thinking about this earlier as well with the guys were talking about an offer. He would probably take that. However, it's conditional for a period of time, development site. And he'd be a bit concerned if a better offer came along in the 20 working days or 25 working days or whatever it is.
Yeah.
How would you combat that? So like, it's not, let's use $1 million, just our round number. The guy really wants 1.1. All the feedback's been below $1 million.
Yeah.
And we've got an offer of $1 million. Then he's like, I'll probably take that, but I'll just be concerned that something might come along better.
Sure. Yeah, we'll lock him in, and then you would have him built into that, the further terms of sale, what we call a cash out clause or an escape clause.
Yep.
Gives you the ability to keep marketing the property. If a deal comes along that's deemed acceptable by the vendor, they'll simply serve a notice on the purchaser, the primary agreement.
Yep.
Built in would be, are we giving them 5 working days, 7 working days or whatever to go unconditional? If they can't, that contract falls over and becomes replaced with the backup offer.
Yep.
It's very common. It's strongly recommended in the case where it's a subject to sale where you've got working days that go out beyond the typical 15, which is, 15 to 20 is usually built into a agreement around stuff like finance building. We know the banks are telling us that they're taking at least 15 working days to turn around some finance approvals in some cases. So we'd expect to see the cash out clause in there. I mean, from a buyer's point of view, they don't like it for pretty obvious reasons, right? It's like, man, there's a chance that I am going to get cashed out. But understand it's protecting your place at the front of the queue in that respect, because before they can cash you out, they've got to give you a time frame to lock it down.
Yeah.
So that gives you the ability then, one, to strengthen that offer in the eyes of the vendor. You are asking for longer working days than normal, but you've built that into the agreement, which makes it a stronger offer. You've protected your position as number one in the queue because he can't just straight cash you out. He's got to give you a window of time to be able to go unconditional. And usually by that time, you've got a pretty clear idea whether or not you're going to be sold, right? And then there's stuff like bridging and options, but none of those options matter until the point you actually have a contract, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's pretty common practice.
You could always improve your offer enough that the owner reconsiders accepting another offer and goes, look, I'm prepared to wait for that price as well. So it could be a negotiation tool for the buyer. Look, I know you wanted to put a cash out clause in. If I increase my offer a little bit, would you give me the length of time required without the escape clause? So that I can do the due diligence required for this development site. They do spend a bit of money. Your geotechs and all the rest of it going into stuff. Nothing's cheap anymore. So, fighting for the right to not have an escape clause or having an escape clause. So we're trying to communicate, look, maybe just supposing in 2 months' time we haven't had a better offer. And this offer was accepted 2 months ago and they're working their way through it and they get to the end of it and they go, yes, sweet as, we'll happily pay the $1 million. And by that, in 2 months' time, our expectations may be there or less. Just supposing that that's the best we can get, would you take it now? And if you get something better, just cash these guys out.
Well, we know the longer a property is on the market, the harder it does get to obtain a premium. I've seen too many times, like in an auction room scenario, where they've seen real strong competitive energy in the auction room. There's been multiple bidders. They've seen that bidding sort of level out at a price I'd sort of call a bit grumpy for them. But hey, it's cash. It's done. You're sold. They've chosen not to engage with those particular buyers. Everyone's gone home. 5 weeks down the track, what they were calling a grumpy price in auction rooms.
Where's that guy gone from the auction?
Exactly. In this market, you've got to show, vendors have to show respect to the buyers that are out there. If you've got a buyer showing genuine interest in your property, that may be the only buyer you're going to see for a while. So, you have to show them due respect and engage with them meaningfully, and hopefully you can get a meeting of the minds and you get an agreement. But I'm coming back to one point I want to add there, which sort of touches on where we were around complaints. A lot of buyers, when we recommend a cash out clause going in there to help strengthen their offer, or they get a bit upset if they end up in a multi-offer situation and how is this happening, and now you're asking me to put my best foot forward. We actually work for the vendor, and so our obligation and our judicial responsibility, they call it, is towards our vendor. And so we absolutely have a duty of care to the buyers, but we work for and get paid by the vendors, which is why we have to, we can't leave these sorts of things off the table, which you may seem as makes your offer, your case stronger, but in actual fact, it has to be able to work for our client.
And so, the client is the person that pays you, isn't it? And so for us, we get paid when we sell a property by the seller. So they're our client. We have to help the buyer, and without a buyer, we wouldn't get a sale. But we're working with the best interests of our vendor at mind. The duty of care, as you say, to the buyer. It's funny, like I'm working with so-and-so, they're my buyer. In New Zealand, we only have typically a listing agreement. So they come to see us at REAA White. We sign up their property for sale. It gives us the ability to market their home and talk to buyers on behalf of the seller, transact, and then get rewarded via a commission from the seller. It's quite often, you go back to the barbecue chat again. Hey, mate, I'll help find you a house. Jump in my car on Sunday. We'll cruise around to a bunch of properties and we'll see which one works and we'll try and get you a deal. Well, that person's straight away breaking their duty effectively to the seller. So if I was at REAA White and I'm off to see a Barfoot listing, what happens is we conjunct with that agency and operate off their agency form. REAA White doesn't go and get their own agency form to introduce your buyer, the immediate barbecue, to that house seller. So we jump on their agency. We're still paid alongside Barfoot and Thompson with the commission. And so we still have to work in the best interest of Barfoot and Thompson's client because that's the only one paying us.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of an interesting type thing where you think you've got to help your mate out from the barbecue, and you might be just by opening doors or making it easier for them to transact on that property, as an example. Yeah. And then, no disrespect to Barfoots in that regard. Just as for this example, it might be, hey, I'll take you to this one that you might not have seen. I'll communicate with the agent so you can just talk to me, and you might be looking at a few properties, so just one point of contact for all those properties. But the agent, me in this scenario, I'm going to get paid by the seller of whichever property you choose to buy. I need to make sure I'm doing the work for the seller, even though you're my mate or a guy I've met at the barbecue or friends, kids, friends, them and parent.
Yeah.
I'm the agent for the seller.
It's a bit of a rookie mistake for your agents, isn't it? And you can understand how they would make that assumption that, they're working with a buyer. The buyer might be a family friend or whatever. And so they are doing what they think is in their best interest in terms of trying to, keep price down and all of that sort of stuff, because they haven't quite worked out yet that actually at the point, if you get a sale here, your buyer's not paying you, it's the seller, it's that vendor. And so sometimes it does need to sort of be painted out in black and white so there's a clear understanding, especially when we have a lot of different agents and agencies involved in the sale of our properties.
Yeah, quite often. So if we're doing 120, 150 sales a month, 30 to 50 of them is other agencies involved. So it's quite a lot. I'd say it's probably on the high side across Auckland, but we're just easy to work with. Yeah. And so all of those guys jump on the conjunction or agreement and are working with our seller. And then they send us an invoice and we pay them a portion of our commission. And that's all okay. It's cool. Sold stickers go up and people move on with their lives. If you're watching this and you are working with a buyer, working with a family member, the gymnastics coach from up the road, whatever, the kids teacher, what you're bringing to the value for them is they know, like, and trust you.
Yeah.
And they've said to you, hey, Richie, can you find me a property? I need a 3-bedroom, a single level or whatever. I'm busy. Can you go and help find me some? And you're arranging with all the agents to go view them and times that suit, and you're being their point of contact. That's what they're getting out of you. You still are going to have to work for the best interest of the seller. And so I think it's remuneration enough for the buyer and for me or you acting as the agent to be able to help you. In the future, you're probably going to use me to sell the property that I helped you buy. Yeah. And that's when I'll get paid by you, and that's when you're my client. Yeah. Up until then, you're just my mate.
100%.
Yeah. So...
And that whole conjunctional topic is quite a good one. We probably get into it another day for the sake of time, but this is one of the things that sellers need to understand when they're talking about things like fees and commission. when you empower your agent with full commission, it gives them the ability to engage the maximum number of agents out there, understanding that, you know, they're going to be cutting a decent slice off for them as well. Clients who really try and smash agents down on fees don't realise that actually you are creating limitations around the ability of that agent to actually engage other agents.
Yeah.
There's nothing in it for them. So they're going to take their really hot buyer with a lot of money off to have a look at another property purely because the vendor of that property has empowered their agent to be able to network meaningfully with other agents, and everybody gets a piece.
Yep. Yeah, that's real common. You know, like, oh, we'll screw you down on fee even before you get started, which is when you agree on what the fee's going to be for a sale. And then so that buyer's operating on a pretty scarce budget. It's like trying to build a house without a hammer. And all of a sudden you're punching in the nails with your fists. It's pretty hard work. But the reward for actually getting the job done has been diminished enough where you don't want to work in with another agency, which is stupid because you need to work in with every other agency to get the property sold for as much as you can. And so the smart owners are the ones that go, look, if you can get me what I want, I've got no problem paying you what you want. That's all good, you know. But if I get what I'm after, no problem. And if it means you've got to, you know, split your commission up with someone else, all of our team know that, hey, we'd rather split the commission with someone else and get the job done than hold on to 100% of the commission and not get a result. Because how much do you get paid if you don't get a result?
Big fat zero.
So, yeah, it's just silly. And our team are smart enough to know that sold stickers are followed by commission checks, followed by 10 out of 10 reviews, followed by referral business. And the ones that are just greedy and try to hold on to everything are the ones that are still generally for sale. It's a pain point, and we deal with those as well. People ring up, oh, these guys aren't going to conjunct with me. Just silly. You can just move along and you take your client somewhere else or take your buyer or your friend somewhere else or whatever. And if they're difficult to work in with, it's generally a sign.
Yeah.
And something goes wrong in the transaction and they're the last ones to be seen.
That's right.
So, yeah, making sure there's enough pie to go around and attract the whole market is a wise seller.
Very wise.